January 17, 1940. Bletchley Park, Buckinghamshire, England. The typewriter keys clatter in the freezing hut 6, each strike echoing off bare wooden walls that offer no protection from the bitter cold seeping through warped window frames. Alan Turing hunches over a desk cluttered with paper strips, mathematical notations scrawled in cramped handwriting, his breath forming small clouds in the lamplight. Outside, snow falls silently over the Victorian mansion and its collection of hastily constructed huts, structures that hold Britain's most desperate secret. He doesn't look up when Commander Alastair Denniston enters, boots scraping against the rough floorboards. Denniston carries a leather satchel, his face drawn and gray, the expression of a man carrying impossible weight. "Another intercept from Station X," Denniston says quietly, placing a manila envelope on Turing's desk. "Kriegsmarine traffic, North Atlantic convoy routes." Turing finally glances up, his eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion. Behind those tired eyes burned something else, obsession perhaps, or desperation. The encrypted message inside that envelope represents lives, merchant sailors in the frigid Atlantic, convoy escorts racing against wolf packs of U-boats, supply ships carrying food to a Britain slowly starving under blockade. "How many days old?" Turing asks. 18 hours. 18 hours. In the deadly mathematics of naval warfare, that might as well be 18 years. By the time they break this code, if they break it, the convoy will have already sailed into whatever fate the Kriegsmarine has planned. The U-boats will have repositioned. The trap will have sprung. Turing opens the envelope. Inside, rows of 5-letter groups stare back at him, meaningless to anyone without the key. QWMHV, DSGBL URTPX FHJKZ. These letters represent the Enigma machine's daily settings, rotor positions, ring settings, plugboard connections. Somewhere in occupied Europe, a German signals officer sat before a machine that looked like a typewriter married to a telephone switchboard, pressing keys that lit up different letters through a maze of spinning rotors and electrical pathways. 3 rotors, chosen from a set of 5. Each rotor with 26 possible starting positions. A plugboard with 10 pairs of letters swapped. The mathematical possibilities are staggering. 158 quintillion 962, quadrillion 555 trillion 217, billion 826,360,000. 158 quintillion possible settings. And they need to find the right one before dawn. Turing walks to the window, pressing his forehead against the cold glass. Beyond the frosted panes, he can just make out the silhouette of Hut 8, where his colleague, mathematician Gordon Welchman, is likely hunched over his own desk, wrestling with the same impossible odds. Further still, in Hut 3, intelligence analysts wait like hungry wolves for any scrap of decrypted text they can translate into actionable intelligence. "We're losing the Atlantic," Denniston says. "It's not a question." The numbers don't lie. In 1939, U-boats sank 114 ships. In 1940, that number jumped to 471. Now, in early 1941, the wolf packs are growing bolder, hunting in coordinated groups that overwhelm convoy escorts. Admiral Karl Dönitz has perfected his Rudel tactic, pack tactics, and his U-boats are strangling Britain's supply lines with ruthless efficiency. Every encrypted message they fail to break is another convoy sailing blind into danger. "How is the bomb coming?" Denniston asks, referring to the electromechanical device Turing has designed, a machine to break a machine. Turing turns from the window. "The prototype works, but we need more, many more. Each bomb can only test so many rotor combinations per day. The Germans change their settings at midnight. We're racing against a clock that resets every 24 hours. Resources are tight." "Resources be damned," Turing's voice cracks with uncharacteristic emotion. "While we debate resources, men are drowning in oil-slicked water. They're burning alive in torpedo strikes. Do you know what it's like out there, Commander? A merchantman takes a torpedo to the hull, doesn't sink immediately. just breaks her back, leaves her wallowing. The crew has maybe 5 minutes before she goes under. 5 minutes in water so cold it stops your heart in 15. Silence falls over Hut 6, broken only by the wind rattling the windows. Deniston's jaw tightens. I'll speak to Churchill directly. You'll have your bombs. But even as he says it, both men know the terrible mathematics. Building the bombs will take months. Training operators to run them will take weeks more. And every day, the Atlantic grows darker with blood and oil. Turing returns to his desk, pulling the encrypted message closer. His mind is already working, searching for patterns in the chaos. The Enigma machine is brilliant, but it has a fatal flaw. A letter can never encrypt to itself. That single constraint creates patterns, tiny statistical fingerprints that a brilliant enough mind might exploit. Somewhere in this jumble of letters is a crib, a probable word. German signals officers are human. They make mistakes. They get lazy. They begin messages with predictable phrases. WTTRVORHERSAGE for weather reports. KEINEBSONDRENEREIGNISSC for nothing to report. Find the crib. Test it against possible rotor positions. Let the bomb do the mathematical heavy lifting. It's not magic, it's mathematics. Cold, precise, and absolutely vital. As Deniston leaves, Turing spreads the encrypted text before him like a battlefield map. Outside, the snow continues to fall over Bletchley Park, covering the secret war being fought in silence. A war of minds against machines, of mathematics against murder. The Codebreakers are going to war. And the enemy will never see them coming. March 14, 1941, Bletchley Park, Hut 11. The bomb sounds like a factory floor, a mechanical symphony of clicking relays, whirring drums, and the steady hum of electric motors working at the edge of their capacity. Dilly Knox stands before the machine, watching its face studded with circular drums rotating in hypnotic patterns, each drum representing one of Enigma's rotors testing thousands of combinations per minute. The heat is oppressive. 10 bombs now operate in Hut 11, each generating enough warmth to make the spring air feel like midsummer. Women in simple dresses and cardigans, members of the Women's Royal Naval Service, called Wrens, monitor the machines with intense focus, adjusting settings, recording stops, communicating through hand signals over the noise. Joan Clark moves between stations with practiced efficiency, her notebook filled with rotor settings and probable cribs. She's 24 years old, a Cambridge mathematics graduate who scored top marks in her cryptanalysis course, though she's officially classified as a linguist because the civil service doesn't recognize women as mathematicians eligible for higher pay grades. The discrimination doesn't slow her down. "Stop on drum 3, calls Margaret Rock, another Wren, her hand raised. Immediately, 3 other women converge on her station. The bomb has found a potential match, a rotor configuration that produces sensible German text from the encrypted gibberish. Clark arrives, scanning the output. Her eyes move rapidly across the letters, her mind automatically translating. MARINGR, UPPWSTMELDTUBOT, SATZBRIT. Marine Group West reports U-boats ready for deployment, she translates quickly. Settings confirmed. Send it to Hut 3. It's a small victory in an endless war. They've broken today's Kriegsmarine Enigma key. Now the real work begins, racing through backlog of intercepted messages, decrypting them before the intelligence becomes obsolete, before the convoys sail into wolf pack ambushes. Knox approaches, his face gaunt from months of overwork. The veteran cryptanalyst who first cracked early Enigma variants now looks decades older than his 57 years. "How long?" he asks Clark. 14 hours from midnight. Knox's expression tightens. 14 hours, 10 hours faster than last month, but still agonizingly slow. A U-boat can travel over 300 miles in 14 hours, Entire convoy routes can shift, weather patterns change. Intelligence from midnight settings is barely actionable by mid-afternoon. "We need more bombs," Clark says quietly. 50 are on order, but manufacturing takes time. Knox glances at the mechanical beast before them. Each bomb costs £50,000, a fortune in wartime Britain, and requires hundreds of precisely machined components. The British Tabulating Machine Company in Letchworth is working around the clock, but precision engineering cannot be rushed without sacrificing reliability. And they need the machines to be reliable. A single mechanical failure, one misaligned drum or worn relay contact, can produce false positives that send analysts chasing phantom settings for hours. Across the room, Gordon Welchman studies a wall-mounted chart tracking U-boat positions derived from decrypted messages. Red pins mark reported sightings. Blue pins show predicted locations based on speed and heading from intercepted orders. The pattern is chilling, wolf packs converging on the convoy routes like fingers closing around a throat. Convoy HX-112 is approaching their intercept zone, Welchman says, his voice carefully neutral. "We broke this morning's traffic, but there's a gap. 6 hours yesterday evening we haven't cracked. Dönitz could have repositioned his boats during that window." The room falls quiet. Everyone understands what those words mean. HX-112 carries 51 ships, merchantmen laden with food, fuel, ammunition, aircraft. 14,000 tons of desperately needed supplies. If the convoy sails into an ambush because of that 6-hour gap in intelligence. "Keep working the backlog," Knox orders. "Every message matters. Even old traffic can reveal patterns, habits, procedures." But Knox knows the brutal truth. They're still too slow. The Germans don't know about Bletchley Park. They don't know their unbreakable Enigma has been compromised. To them, the machine represents mathematical perfection. Billions of possible settings changed daily, operated by trained signals officers following strict protocols. They believe their communications are absolutely secure. That belief is Britain's greatest weapon. But it's also a weapon that must be used with surgical precision. Every time the Royal Navy reroutes a convoy based on decrypted intelligence, there's risk. If convoys consistently avoid U-boat positions, if escorts arrive at exactly the right moment to intercept submarines, German naval intelligence might grow suspicious. They might investigate. They might discover the leak. And then the Enigma machines would change. New rotors, different wiring, altered protocols. All the work at Bletchley Park, the bombs, the cribs, the mathematical methods, would become obsolete overnight. Clark moves to the next bomb, checking the settings against her notes. The machine's drums spin endlessly, testing, rejecting, searching for that needle in the mathematical haystack. Around her, 24 wrens perform their duties with quiet competence, young women, many barely out of school, who will never be able to tell their families what they did during the war. The Official Secrets Act hangs over them all like a sword. Sign it upon arrival. Speak nothing of your work ever to anyone. Violate it and face prosecution, or worse, know that your loose lips might have cost Allied lives. The weight of that secret creates an invisible wall between the Codebreakers and the rest of Britain. They cannot share their victories. They cannot explain their exhaustion. They cannot mourn their failures publicly. Another stop, calls Sarah Norton from Bomb 7. The work continues, message by message, rotor setting by rotor setting, a secret war fought in mechanical clicks and mathematical probability. Outside, Britain wages its public war, fighters scrambling to meet bomber formations, soldiers training for eventual invasion, civilians enduring rationing and air raids. That war is visible, documented, heroic. Inside Hut 11, another war unfolds, invisible, unacknowledged, and absolutely vital. The bombs continue their endless search, drums spinning through mathematical possibility space, hunting for the daily keys that unlock enemy secrets. And somewhere in the Atlantic, Convoy HX-112 sails toward its unknown fate. March 16, 1941. North Atlantic, 400 miles south of Iceland. Captain J.M. Rowland stands on the bridge of HMS Walker, his eyes scanning the gray horizon where sea and sky merge into a colorless void. The destroyer rises and falls with the Atlantic swells, her riveted hull creaking with each wave. Behind her, spread across 12 miles of ocean, Convoy HX-112 steams eastward, 51 merchant ships carrying the lifeblood of Britain. The radio man appears at his elbow holding a decoded message. "From Admiralty, sir. Flash priority." Rowland reads quickly. Ultra Intercept INDICATES U-boat concentration grid square AK-47. Recommend course alteration 20 degrees north. Maintain radio silence. Ultra, the code word that means the intelligence comes from Bletchley Park, from the Codebreakers, from Enigma decrypts that the Germans must never suspect exist. Rowland's jaw tightens. The course change will add 12 hours to their crossing, 12 hours burning precious fuel, 12 hours exposing the convoy to storm weather moving in from the northwest. But if the intelligence is accurate, those 12 hours might save hundreds of lives. Signal the convoy, he orders. Course change to 045 degrees. Maintain formation, no explanation. The merchant captains won't understand. They'll curse the escort commander for the delay, for the wasted fuel, for the inexplicable deviation. They cannot know that beneath the waves, a wolf pack of 8 U-boats is forming a patrol line exactly where the convoy would have been in 6 hours. They cannot know because they must not know. Same day, U-110 submerged 200 miles northeast of HX-112's original track. Captain Lieutenant Fritz Julius Lemp peers through the periscope, sweeping the empty horizon with growing frustration. The Type IXB U-boat sits at periscope depth, her diesel engine silent, running on electric motors to avoid detection. 46 men breathe recycled air thick with the smell of diesel fuel, unwashed bodies, and machine oil. "Nothing," Lemp mutters, stepping back from the periscope. "Bidu's calculations put the convoy here by 1400 hours. It's nearly 1600 and we've seen nothing but empty ocean." Bidu, Befehlshaber der U-boot. U-boat command. Admiral Karl Dernitz's headquarters that coordinates wolf pack operations with mathematical precision. Dernitz plots convoy routes based on speed calculations, weather patterns, intelligence from surface radars and Luftwaffe reconnaissance. His system has turned U-boat warfare into a science. But science requires accurate data, and something is wrong with the data. The radio man hands Lemp a decoded message. "Patrol line Alpha. Maintain position. Convoy DELAYED by weather." Weather, always weather, or equipment failures, or unexpected course changes. For the past 2 months, Lemp has noticed that convoys increasingly seem to avoid U-boat patrol lines by margins too narrow to be pure coincidence. Not every time, that would be obvious, but often enough to create an itch of suspicion. He mentioned it once to his first officer, who laughed it off. "The British are lucky, Herr Kalu. We're hunting across millions of square kilometers. The ocean is vast." Lucky, perhaps, but Lemp has been at sea since 1939. He was aboard U-30 when it accidentally sank the passenger liner Athenia on the war's first day, a mistake that haunts him still. He's learned to trust his instincts about the sea. And his instincts say something is wrong. But what can he do? Report to Bidu that he has a feeling that the British might have supernatural powers to predict U-boat positions. The Enigma machine is unbreakable. Every U-boat officer knows this. The machine has millions of settings changed daily. Even captured machines are useless without the daily keys, and the daily keys are transmitted using the Enigma machine. It's a perfect circle of security. Isn't it? "Dive to 80 meters, Lemp orders. "We'll wait submerged, conserve battery power." U-110 noses down into the black depths, leaving the empty surface behind. March 17, 1941, Bletchley Park, Hut 3. Squadron leader Frederick Winterbotham reads the confirmation signal with quiet satisfaction. HX-112 has successfully evaded the wolf pack. 51 ships, thousands of tons of cargo, hundreds of lives, saved because mathematicians broke a code and the Admiralty acted on the intelligence without hesitation. But Winterbotham doesn't celebrate. He can't, because his job is to ensure the Germans never discover what Bletchley Park has accomplished. He's the architect of ultra-security, the protocols that govern how decrypted intelligence can be used. Every ultra message carries strict handling instructions. Burn after reading, never mention source, always create plausible alternative explanations. If a convoy avoids U-boats, the Admiralty must have a cover story. Aerial reconnaissance spotted the submarines, or a merchant ship reported a periscope sighting, or signals intelligence indicated increased radio traffic in the area. Never the truth, never enigma. Sometimes, and this is the cruel calculus of war, convoys must be allowed to sail into danger even when Bletchley Park knows the risk. If British intelligence were perfect, if every convoy avoided every wolf pack, German suspicion would become certainty. The source must be protected at all costs, even if the cost is measured in lives. Winterbotham's assistant enters with another decrypt, this one from German Army traffic, not naval. Western Front intelligence estimate, the assistant says. They're assessing our troop strength in Egypt. Winterbotham scans the text. The German estimate is badly wrong. They believe British forces in Egypt are far weaker than reality. Good. That misconception might save lives during Rommel's inevitable offensive. But again, Winterbotham cannot simply hand this intelligence to Cairo and say, the Germans underestimate you. He must create a story. Agents in Berlin intercepted diplomatic pouches, prisoner interrogations. Layer upon layer of deception to protect the central secret. It's exhausting work, mentally, morally. He thinks of the men at sea, on both sides. British sailors who don't know why their convoy suddenly changes course. German submariners who don't know their communications are compromised. All of them pawns in a secret war they cannot perceive. His telephone rings. It's Deniston. Winterbotham, we have a problem. The Luftwaffe has introduced a new Enigma variant, 4 rotors instead of 3. The bombs can't handle it. We're blind to their traffic. Winterbotham's blood runs cold. 4 rotors means exponentially more possible settings. The mathematical haystack has just become a mountain range. How long until we can break it? Turing estimates 6 months, maybe longer. We need to redesign the bombs, add more drums, increase processing capacity. 6 months of being blind to Luftwaffe communications. 6 months of not knowing where German bombers will strike, where fighters will intercept, where reconnaissance planes are searching. We'll manage, Winterbotham says, though he's not sure he believes it. We always do. He hangs up and stares at the decrypt before him. Another tiny victory in an endless war of invisible battles. Outside, the sun sets over Bletchley Park, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. May 9, 1941, North Atlantic, 300 miles west of Ireland. The depth charges detonate like underwater thunder, shaking U-110's hull with bone-rattling violence. Inside the pressure hull, men grip whatever they can as the submarine heels violently to starboard, emergency lighting casting everything in hellish red. Glass shatters. Equipment tears loose from mountings. A hydraulic line ruptures, spraying oil across the control room. Pressure in the boat, screams the engineer. Diving planes not responding, we're going down. Captain Lieutenant Lemp grabs the depth gauge, 180 meters and sinking fast. The crush depth for a Type IXB is 230 meters. After that, The hull implodes like a crushed can, killing everyone instantly. Blow all tanks, emergency surface. Compressed air roars through the ballast tanks, forcing water out with desperate speed. U-110 lurches upward, breaching the surface in a shower of spray. Lemp knows what awaits them up there. British destroyers, guns trained, ready to finish what the depth charges started. But it's surface or die. The U-boat breaks into daylight, seawater streaming from her conning tower. 300 yards away, HMS Bulldog turns toward them, her forward guns already firing. Shells bracket U-110, geysers of water erupting port and starboard. Abandon ship, Lemp orders. Set scuttling charges, go, go, go. Men scramble up the ladder, emerging into chaos. Machine gun fire from Bulldog rips across U-110's deck, forcing the crew to dive into the frigid Atlantic. Lemp follows, pulling himself through the hatch, and realizes his fatal mistake. In the panic and confusion, nobody went below to open the sea valves. The scuttling charges weren't set. U-110 isn't sinking. She's wallowing on the surface, very much intact, her secrets exposed to British eyes. HMS Bulldog, minutes later. Sub-Lieutenant David Bomme watches as Bulldog's whaler, a small boat, lowers into the water. He's been given impossible orders. Board the enemy submarine that might explode at any moment, secure any intelligence materials, and try not to die in the process. If she starts to sink, get off immediately, Commander Baker Creswell tells him. Don't be a hero. We need what's inside more than we need prisoners. The whaler pulls alongside U-110's hull, rising and falling with the swell. Bomme jumps, catching a deck cleat, hauling himself aboard. His boarding party follows, 8 men armed with pistols and hand grenades, none of them knowing what awaits below. The conning tower hatch yawns open like a mouth. Bomme peers down into darkness. No sound, no movement. The U-boat could be rigged with demolition charges set to explode. The crew could have opened the sea valves before abandoning ship, or German sailors might still be hiding below, waiting to ambush boarders. Cover me, Bomme says and drops through the hatch. He lands in the control room, pistol drawn, heart hammering. Emergency lighting casts red shadows across a scene of chaos, papers scattered, equipment damaged, the acrid smell of burnt wiring hanging in the recycled air. Water sloshes ankle-deep across the deck plates, but the submarine isn't flooding catastrophically. No Germans, they all got out. Clear, Bomme shouts. His boarding party descends, fanning out through the submarine. And then Bomme sees it. Sitting on the radio operator's desk, undamaged, still plugged into its power source, an Enigma machine. 3 rotors visible through the front panel, the keyboard intact, the plugboard still configured with its daily settings. Bomme has no idea what he's looking at. He's not a cryptanalyst. To him, it looks like some sort of typewriter with a lamp board, but his orders were clear: take everything that looks important. Get this up top, he orders, carefully. 2 sailors lift the Enigma machine, treating it like unstable explosives. They pass it up through the hatch to waiting hands on deck. But the real treasure lies elsewhere. Bomme finds it in the radio room, a locked cabinet marked Geheim, secret. He shoots the lock off with his pistol and pulls the door open. Inside, codebooks, weather cipher tables, the Kurzsignal, short signal code book, Lufthansa recognition signals, and most precious of all, the Enigma key tables showing rotor settings for the next 2 months. Every setting, every day, June and July 1941. 2 months of being inside the German Navy's head, before they even send their messages. Sir, one of the sailors points at the deck. She's settling by the stern. Water is rising through the aft compartments. U-110 is finally beginning her death plunge. Grab everything, papers, books, charts, everything, Bomme shouts. Form a chain, pass it up. For 20 frantic minutes, The boarding party works in rising water, passing an intelligence bonanza up through the conning tower hatch. Enigma rotors, indicator lists, grid reference maps showing U-boat operational areas, recognition signals, everything the Germans thought was safely locked away in a submarine that would never be captured. Off now, Baker Cresswell's voice carries across the water. U-110's stern is under, her bow rising at a steep angle. Bommy is the last man up. He emerges onto the deck just as the submarine shudders, her hull finally giving up the fight against the sea. U-110 slides backward into the Atlantic, taking her secrets to the bottom. Except the secrets aren't at the bottom. They're in a whaler heading back to Bulldog, wrapped in canvas, dripping seawater. Baker Cresswell watches the material come aboard, understanding immediately what they've captured. Not just intelligence, not just codebooks. They've captured the key to German naval communications for the next 2 months, maybe longer if Bletchley Park can exploit the machine itself to break future settings. Signal to Admiralty, he tells his radio man. Ultra priority, use the special code. The radio man's eyes widen as he reads the draft message. He understands what this means. May 10, 1941. Bletchley Park, Commander Deniston's office. Alan Turing holds the Enigma machine from U-110 like it's made of glass. His fingers trace the rotors, examining the wiring, confirming what he already suspected. The naval Enigma is mechanically identical to the variants they've already broken. The German security lies not in the machine itself, but in the daily key settings. Settings they now possess for 2 full months. How quickly can we process the backlog? Deniston asks. Hours instead of days, Turing replies, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. We don't need to search for the settings, we already know them. We can decrypt messages almost in real time. Every U-boat position report, every operational order, every weather forecast. The entire Kriegsmarine communications network is an open book. Deniston allows himself a rare smile. For 2 months, then they'll change their procedures and we'll be back to searching. But in those 2 months, we can save convoys, we can sink U-boats, we can change the course of the Atlantic War. Turing sets the machine down carefully. And we can study their procedures, find new cribs, develop better methods. This isn't just about 2 months of intelligence. It's about understanding the system well enough to break it permanently. Joan Clark enters with a stack of decrypted messages. The June settings work perfectly. We've broken everything in the backlog. And there's something else. U-Boat Command is planning a major operation against convoy HX-126, 14 submarines. They're calling it the largest wolf pack ever assembled. When? Deniston demands. 5 days. We know the exact intercept coordinates, their patrol formation, even the individual U-boat assignments. Deniston and Turing exchange glances. This is the moment they've been working toward, the ability to not just react to German movements but to anticipate them, to see the trap before it closes. Reroute the convoy, Deniston says quietly, and send additional escorts to hunt the wolf pack while it's waiting in position. Let's turn the hunters into the hunted. Won't that risk exposing the source? Clark asks. We'll be careful. Air patrols just happened to spot submarine concentrations. A merchant ship reported a periscope. We'll layer the deception thick enough to hide the truth. Outside the office window, the sun rises over Bletchley Park, illuminating the huts where hundreds of people labor in secrecy. The bombs clatter in Hut 11. Analysts pore over decrypts in Hut 3. Intercept stations across Britain pick up German radio traffic and forward it to this unremarkable Victorian estate. An invisible army fighting an invisible war. And for the first time since 1939, they're winning. November 14, 1940. Bletchley Park, 14 months earlier. The telegram arrives at 3:47 p.m., its words stark against the cream-colored paper. Coventry under heavy Luftwaffe attack. Hundreds of bombers, city burning. Frederick Winterbotham reads it without expression, though his hands tremble slightly. He knew this was coming. Bletchley Park had decrypted the Luftwaffe orders 3 days ago. Operation Mondscheinsonate, Moonlight Sonata. 500 bombers targeting Coventry's industrial heart. Aircraft factories, munitions works, the medieval city center, everything would burn. They had warned Churchill. Emergency services had been quietly reinforced. Fire brigades from surrounding counties had been prepositioned. Air raid wardens had been briefed to expect the worst. But they could not evacuate the city, could not ground the RAF in overwhelming numbers, could not do anything that might make the Germans ask, how did the British know? Because if the Germans suspected Enigma was compromised, they would change everything. New machines, new protocols, and the intelligence advantage that might win the war would vanish overnight. So Coventry burned. 568 people died that night. Thousands more were injured. The medieval cathedral, standing for 600 years, was reduced to a smoking shell. 12 aircraft factories were destroyed. The city center became rubble. And the Enigma secret remained safe. Winterbotham stares at the telegram, feeling the weight of every life lost. Could they have done more? Could they have found some middle ground between perfect foreknowledge and complete surprise? The mathematics are brutal. Coventry's 500 dead must be weighed against the thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands, who might die if Enigma is lost. It's the calculus of war at its most terrible. But mathematics cannot erase the human cost. May 1941, present day, HMS Bulldog escorting captured U-110 materials to Scapa Flow. Commander Baker Creswell summons his officers to his cabin. His face is grave. Gentlemen, what happened today never happened. U-110 sank before we could board her. We rescued German survivors and that's all. No boarding, no capture, no Enigma machine. If you speak of this to anyone, your wives, your families, your fellow officers, you will be prosecuted under the Official Secrets Act. Is that clear? The officers nod, understanding the gravity. Sublieutenant Balmy thinks of his boarding party, young men who risked their lives descending into that submarine. They'll never receive medals for their bravery. Their names will never appear in official reports. History will not record their actions. At least not for decades. What about the German prisoners, sir? Asks the first officer. Won't they report that we boarded U-110? They're being held in isolation. As far as German Naval Command will know, U-110 went down with all hands. Captain Lieutenant Lemp is listed as killed in action. Baker Creswell's voice softened slightly. I don't enjoy this deception, but the intelligence we captured today might save thousands of lives. That's worth a few uncomfortable lies. Lemp is alive, actually, pulled from the frigid Atlantic by Bulldog's crew. But he believes his submarine sank too quickly for the British to recover anything. He doesn't know his failure to scuttle properly has handed the Allies their greatest intelligence coup of the war. He will spend the rest of the war in a Canadian POW camp, never knowing the truth. June 1941, Bletchley Park, Hut 8. The intelligence flowing from the captured materials transforms the Battle of the Atlantic. Every U-boat movement is tracked. Every wolf pack formation is anticipated. Convoys slip through German patrol lines like ghosts, guided by invisible hands. In June, U-boat kills drop by 40%. In July, 50%. Admiral Dönitz is baffled. His mathematically precise wolf pack tactics are failing for reasons he cannot fathom. British convoys seem to possess uncanny luck, appearing where U-boats are not, avoiding where U-boats are. But he doesn't suspect Enigma. How could he? The machine is mathematically unbreakable. Joan Clark sits at her desk, processing the day's decrypts. Each message represents a small victory, a convoy saved, a wolf pack avoided, lives preserved. But she never forgets the larger picture. They can only use this intelligence carefully, sparingly, mixed with enough failures to maintain the illusion that British success is mere luck. Some convoys must still be sacrificed. Some merchant ships must still burn. The arithmetic of secrecy demands it. Turing appears beside her desk, his hair disheveled, eyes bright with excitement. We've had a breakthrough on the four-rotor problem. Welchman's designed a modification to the bombs, adds a fourth drum tier. We should be able to crack Luftwaffe traffic within weeks. Four-rotor Enigma has blinded them to Luftwaffe communications since March. Bomber raids have been harder to predict, fighter deployments more mysterious. The cost in British lives has been significant. How many bombs will we need? Clark asks. 50, maybe 60. Production is accelerating, but it's still not fast enough. Turing runs his hand through his hair. We're fighting a war of mathematics against industrial capacity. Every day, more messages are sent than we can decrypt. We're drowning in intelligence we cannot process quickly enough to use. It's the eternal problem. Even with the keys, even knowing the settings, there's too much traffic. German armed forces send thousands of messages daily. The bombs can only process so many. Priority must be given to naval traffic. U-boat positions matter more than supply requisitions. Tactical communications trump administrative messages. But every unprioritized message might contain critical intelligence, might reveal invasion plans, might save lives. The burden of choice weighs on everyone at Bletchley Park. December 1941, Hut 11. Margaret Rock, one of the Wren operators, watches her bomb's drums spin through another search cycle. She's been at Bletchley for 18 months now, running machines whose purpose she only partly understands. She knows they're breaking codes. She knows the work is vital. What she doesn't know is how many lives depend on her accuracy. A single mistake in setting rotor positions, one misread indicator, and the bomb produces garbage. Hours of analyst time wasted. Intelligence missed. Convoys sailing unwarned into danger. The pressure is immense, though unspoken. The Wrens work 12-hour shifts 6 days a week. The bomb room is hot, loud, relentless. Mechanical failures are common. When a machine breaks down, they work frantically to repair it. Every hour of downtime is an hour of missed decryption. Stop on drum 6, Rock calls. Another potential break, another piece of the puzzle. She'll never know that this particular decrypt reveals a U-boat ambush plan that will be foiled, saving a convoy of 43 ships carrying food to Britain. She'll never know that her steady hands and careful attention just preserved hundreds of lives. That's the burden the Codebreakers carry. They fight a war where victories are silent and failures are catastrophic, where success means nothing happened, where recognition must be denied for decades. Outside, December snow falls over Bletchley Park. In the distance, church bells ring, celebrating Pearl Harbor's entry, bringing America into the war. The conflict has expanded, become global. And in their secret huts, the Codebreakers continue their invisible war, message by message, day by day, breaking the unbreakable, one mathematical miracle at a time. February 1943. U-boat headquarters, Lorient, France. Admiral Karl Dönitz stares at the operational map, his weathered face betraying rare confusion. Red pins mark U-boat losses, and there are far too many. In the past 3 months, 47 submarines have failed to return, 47 boats, over 2,000 trained submariners, gone. They're finding us too easily, his chief of operations reports. Convoys alter course hours before reaching our patrol lines. British escorts appear exactly where our boats are concentrated. It's as if they know our positions before we transmit them. Dönitz considers this carefully. The implication is impossible, that British intelligence can read German naval communications in real time, but Enigma is mathematically unbreakable. Every U-boat commander knows this. The machine has been tested, analyzed, proven secure against any conceivable attack. What about their radar? Durnitz asks. The British have made advances. Radar cannot explain convoy route changes made 2 days before our boats are in position. Radar cannot explain how they know to avoid grid squares we haven't even occupied yet. The room falls silent. The unspoken thought hangs heavy. Could Enigma be compromised? Impossible, Durnitz says firmly. Our cryptographic experts have reviewed the system thoroughly. Even if the British captured an Enigma machine, which they have not, they would need the daily keys, and those are transmitted via Enigma itself, creating a secure loop. No, there must be another explanation. Increased air patrols, better direction-finding equipment, perhaps agents in our ports reporting U-boat departures. He believes this. He must believe this, because the alternative, that Britain has broken Enigma and is reading every order, every position report, every operational plan, is too catastrophic to accept. Double our patrols around Iceland, Durnitz orders, and implement new radio discipline protocols. Boats will maintain radio silence except for critical contact reports. We'll reduce the British opportunity to direction find our transmissions. Radio silence, the one countermeasure that actually works against Bletchley Park, because you cannot decrypt messages that aren't sent. But radio silence also cripples wolf pack coordination. It turns submarine warfare back into individual hunting, abandoning the coordinated tactics that made the U-boats so deadly. Durnitz doesn't know it, but he's already lost the Battle of the Atlantic. Same month, Bletchley Park, HUD 8. Alan Turing reviews the latest intercepts with satisfaction. German radio traffic has decreased dramatically, exactly as predicted. Durnitz is reacting to his losses by imposing radio discipline, not realizing that the losses themselves prove Enigma is compromised. They're reducing message volume by 60%, Hugh Alexander reports. Alexander has taken over much of HUD 8's day-to-day operations, freeing Turing to work on more advanced projects. But what they do send, we're reading within hours. The combination of captured Enigma materials, improved bombs, and experienced cryptanalysts has created a formidable intelligence machine. Naval Enigma breaks routinely now. Army and Luftwaffe traffic yields to analysis. Even SS communications, using a variant called Enigma G, are partially readable. Bletchley Park now employs over 7,000 people. The original mansion and huts have been supplemented by purpose-built concrete blocks. Bombs operate in dedicated facilities. A teleprinter network connects Bletchley to Intercept stations across Britain, delivering German radio traffic within minutes of transmission. The organization has evolved from a desperate improvisation into an industrial-scale intelligence operation. Joan Clark enters with decoded transcripts from North Africa. Rommel's supply situation is desperate. He's requesting immediate fuel deliveries to Tobruk, if the RAF can intercept those tankers. Send it to Cairo immediately, Turing says. But remind them, reconnaissance must discover the convoy first. We cannot simply bomb ships without plausible explanation. The cover story requirement never goes away. Every action based on ultra-intelligence must be disguised. Reconnaissance flights must be flown, and be seen to be flown, before attacks occur. Agents must be created on paper to explain intelligence that actually came from decrypts. The deception operation protecting the codebreakers has become almost as complex as the code-breaking itself. How are the Americans adapting to ultra procedures? Alexander asks. Since Pearl Harbor, American officers have been cleared to receive ultra-intelligence. Teaching them the elaborate security protocols has been challenging. Slowly, Clark admits, they're accustomed to more direct action. The concept of deliberately sacrificing tactical advantages to protect strategic sources doesn't come naturally to field commanders. It's a cultural clash. American military doctrine emphasizes decisive action, overwhelming force, rapid exploitation of intelligence. British doctrine, shaped by years of desperate defense, understands that sometimes the greatest victory is not taking action, preserving the intelligence source for future use. June 1944. Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, England. General Dwight D. Eisenhower reviews the ultra-intelligence one final time. D-Day is hours away, the largest amphibious invasion in history, and Ultra has given him a priceless gift: certainty about German dispositions in Normandy. He knows which divisions are where. He knows the command structure. He knows Hitler has been deceived by Operation Fortitude, the elaborate deception plan suggesting the invasion will come at Calais, not Normandy. Ultra decrypts show German reserves held back, waiting for a landing that will never come. The weather's marginal, his meteorological officer warns. 24-hour postponement might give us better conditions. But Eisenhower knows what the meteorologist doesn't. Ultra has revealed that German weather forecasters predict the storm will make invasion impossible for days. The Germans are standing down, commanders leaving for staff exercises, believing the Allies cannot possibly attack in such conditions. We go, Eisenhower decides. The window is narrow, but Ultra confirms the enemy doesn't expect us. That's worth the risk. Hours later, 156,000 Allied soldiers storm the beaches of Normandy. The German response is confused, delayed, inadequate. Rommel is away from his headquarters. Panzer reserves aren't deployed. The Atlantic Wall, supposedly impregnable, is breached in a single day. Ultra didn't win D-Day alone. The courage of soldiers storming machine gun nests, the skill of naval gunners suppressing coastal batteries, the determination of paratroopers holding critical crossroads, these won the battle. But Ultra gave the invasion its best possible chance, and in war, that edge between success and failure is often measured in the smallest of margins. May 1945, Bletchley Park, the day after VE Day. The war in Europe is over. Hitler is dead. Germany has surrendered unconditionally, and at Bletchley Park the Codebreakers face an unexpected emotion: anticlimax. There are no parades for them, no public recognition, no medal ceremony. Alan Turing stands in Hut 8, looking at the bombs that will soon be dismantled. Over 300 of them now exist, the product of years of refinement. They've processed millions of messages, broken hundreds of thousands of Enigma settings, provided intelligence that changed the course of history. And now they'll be destroyed, broken up, scrapped, all evidence of their existence erased to protect the secret that Enigma was broken. Because some enemies are still using Enigma machines. Former German equipment has been distributed to developing nations, sold as unbreakable encryption devices. British intelligence wants to keep reading those messages. So the secret must be kept for decades. Joan Clark finds him there. She's engaged to be married now, not to Turing, whose brief, troubled proposal ended when he confessed his homosexuality. She's found someone else, someone who doesn't know what she did during the war and never will. They're saying we shortened the war by 2 years, she says quietly. That's the estimate, 2 years, millions of lives. Turing nods. Eisenhower said our intelligence was worth 30 divisions. I suppose that's quantifiable success. But his voice is flat, because quantifiable success feels hollow when it must remain secret. When the Wrens who operated the bombs will go back to ordinary jobs, never able to say they helped win the war. When the mathematicians who broke the unbreakable will return to universities and pubs in peacetime obscurity, carrying secrets they can never share. Was it worth it? Clark asks. Not the intelligence, they both know that was invaluable, but the secrecy, the isolation, the burden of knowing that your greatest achievement must be denied. Turing is quiet for a long moment. Ask me in 30 years, he finally says. When we can finally tell the truth, when historians can write what really happened, when the world can know that the war wasn't just won by soldiers and sailors and pilots, but by mathematicians with pencils and paper breaking codes that were supposed to be unbreakable. He turns away from the bombs toward the window. Outside, Britain celebrates. Inside Bletchley Park, the unsung heroes prepare to return to silence. Their war is over, but their silence has just begun. June 7, 1954, Wilmslow, Cheshire, England. Alan Turing's housekeeper finds him in his bed, dead at age 41. On his nightstand sits a half-eaten apple laced with cyanide, a deliberate echo, perhaps, of Snow White, his favorite fairy tale. The inquest will rule it suicide, though some will forever wonder if it was accidental poisoning from his amateur chemistry experiments. The newspapers report the death of a mathematician and computer pioneer. They mention his work on the automatic computing engine. They note his conviction for gross indecency, homosexual acts that were criminal in 1950s Britain. They describe the chemical castration he endured as an alternative to prison, the hormone treatments that left him physically and emotionally devastated. What the newspapers cannot report, what they will not know for another 20 years, is that Alan Turing helped win World War II, that his mathematical genius broke codes that saved hundreds of thousands of lives, that his work at Bletchley Park shortened the war by years. The Official Secrets Act keeps him silent even in death. His mother, Sarah, arranges a quiet funeral. A handful of colleagues attend, some from his current work at Manchester University, a few who remember him from wartime, though they cannot speak of what they remember. Nobody mentions Bletchley Park. Nobody mentions Enigma. Nobody mentions that the British government persecuted a man who quite possibly saved their nation. Joan Clark attends, standing apart from the small crowd, thinking of the brilliant, awkward man who briefly proposed marriage to her. She remembers him hunched over Enigma printouts, his mind racing through mathematical possibilities at speeds that left others breathless. She remembers his odd habits, running miles to work, his stammering speech, his complete social obliviousness mixed with flashes of profound insight. She cannot speak of any of this, not here, not yet. The secret remains locked. 1974, 20 years after Turing's death. Frederick Winterbotham publishes The Ultra Secret, the first authorized account of Bletchley Park's work. After 3 decades of silence, the story begins to emerge. Enigma was broken. The Allies read German communications throughout the war. The intelligence advantage was immense, perhaps decisive. The book causes a sensation. Historians scramble to revise their understanding of World War II. Military analysts recalculate strategic decisions. The public learns that their victory came not just from industrial might and military valor, but from mathematical genius working in secret. But for many codebreakers, the revelation comes too late. Dilly Knox died of cancer in 1943, his contributions unacknowledged. Gordon Welchman lived to see partial recognition, but remained frustrated by continued restrictions on what could be revealed. Harry Hinsley, who became a respected historian, spent decades carefully navigating what he could and couldn't say about his wartime work. And Alan Turing, the man whose bomb made it all possible, died in disgrace 20 years earlier, his greatest achievement unknown to the world. 1991, Bletchley Park faces demolition. The Victorian mansion and its wartime huts have been abandoned for years. The site is scheduled to become a housing development. Most of the physical evidence of the code-breaking operation has already been destroyed, bombs scrapped, documents burned, huts demolished. A small group of veterans, aging men and women who once worked there, begin a campaign to save the site. They're opposed by bureaucratic inertia, by government reluctance to draw attention to intelligence operations, by simple economics that say a museum cannot compete with housing prices. But the veterans persist. They write letters. They give interviews. They explain to a new generation that this unremarkable collection of buildings was where the modern world learned that information itself could be a weapon, that mathematics could change history, that silent heroes could win wars. Slowly public opinion shifts. Bletchley Park is saved. 2009. The British government formally apologizes to Alan Turing. Prime Minister Gordon Brown issues a statement acknowledging Turing's contributions and the injustice of his prosecution. "We're sorry, you deserved so much better," Brown writes. It's a small gesture, 55 years too late, but it marks official recognition of a fundamental wrong. The apology cannot undo the chemical castration, cannot restore the years Turing lost, cannot bring him back to receive the recognition he deserved. But it acknowledges a truth, that Britain treated a national hero as a criminal because of who he loved, that genius and service meant nothing against the prejudices of the era, that silence can be a form of violence. 2013. Queen Elizabeth II grants Turing a posthumous royal pardon. The pardon is controversial. Some argue it implies Turing was guilty and needed forgiveness, when in fact the law itself was unjust. Others say it singles out one victim when thousands of men were prosecuted under the same discriminatory statutes. But the pardon also represents something else, full circle acknowledgement. The woman whose realm Turing helped save has officially exonerated him. The secret that outlasted his life has been told. The silence has been broken. Today, Bletchley Park now a museum. Visitors walk through restored huts where the Codebreakers worked. A rebuilt bomb clicks and whirs, demonstrating the mechanical marvel that broke Enigma. Display cases hold original documents, Enigma machines, photographs of the young men and women who changed history. Tour guides explain the mathematics, the rotor settings, the cribs and the bomb searches, the careful balance between using intelligence and protecting sources, the human cost of secrecy. In one hut, a memorial plaque honors Alan Turing. His face, young, uncertain, brilliant, stares from a photograph. The plaque lists his achievements: mathematician, computer pioneer, codebreaker, hero. It doesn't mention how he died. Doesn't need to. The tragedy is implicit in the timeline: brilliant work during the war, persecution after, death at 41. Visitors can do the math. Nearby, another display honors the Wrens, the women who operated the bombs. Photographs show them in uniform, young and serious, hands on machine controls. Their names are listed: Margaret Rock, Sarah Norton, hundreds more. They worked 12-hour shifts in deafening heat, maintaining mechanical precision under immense pressure. Many lived into their 90s, carrying secrets for 50 years before finally being able to share their stories. A reconstruction of Hut 8 shows Turing's workspace: simple desk, scattered papers, an Enigma machine for reference. The room is small, cramped, cold in winter, hot in summer. This is where mathematical warfare was waged. Children on school trips peer at the displays, struggling to understand a world before computers, before smartphones, when breaking a code required mechanical ingenuity and mathematical brilliance rather than computational brute force. Their teachers explain, these people saved millions of lives. They shortened a terrible war. They pioneered modern computing and information warfare, and they did it in silence, receiving no recognition, no medals, no public gratitude for decades. Some children ask, why the secrecy? Why couldn't they tell anyone? The answer is complex: protecting sources, maintaining advantage, preparing for future conflicts. But underneath lies a simpler truth: the most powerful secrets are the ones nobody knows you have. Epilogue: the legacy. The work at Bletchley Park laid foundations for the modern world. The bombs were early computers, special-purpose machines that proved computation could solve complex problems faster than human minds. Turing's theoretical work on computation and artificial intelligence established entire fields of study. The organizational structures created at Bletchley, interdisciplinary teams, industrial-scale analysis, the marriage of human intuition and mechanical processing, became models for intelligence agencies worldwide. The ethical dilemmas faced by the codebreakers, when to use intelligence, when to protect sources, how to balance tactical gains against strategic security, remain relevant today in an age of mass surveillance and cyber warfare. And the human cost, brilliant minds forced into silence, achievements unrecognized, lives destroyed by discrimination, serves as a reminder that society often fails to protect its own heroes. Alan Turing never knew his work would be remembered. He died thinking his greatest contribution would remain forever secret, his name unknown to history, his genius unacknowledged. He was wrong. Today, his face appears on British currency. His name is known worldwide. His story has been told in books and films. Universities and tech companies compete for Turing Awards. He is recognized as one of the 20th century's most important figures, not despite his differences, but as a complete person whose brilliance transcended the prejudices that destroyed him. The silence has been broken. The secrets have been told. And the codebreakers of WWII, those unsung intelligence heroes who fought an invisible war with nothing but mathematics and determination, have finally received the recognition they always deserved. Their story is not just history. It's a testament to the power of human intellect, the cost of secrecy, and the enduring truth that sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones nobody knows exist. Until, finally, someone remembers to tell their story.